They are, that's an air raid, an air raid siren. Several of them going off here in the center of the Ukrainian capital.
Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий. Кто бы ни пытался помешать, тем более создать угрозы для нашего народа, должны знать, что ответ России будет незамедлительным и приведет нас к таким последствиям, с которыми вы в своей истории еще никогда
не нужна война, не холодная, не горячая, не гибридная. Но если на нас будут наступать войска, если у нас попытаются отнять нашу страну, нашу свободу, нашу жизнь, жизни наших детей, мы будем защищаться. Не наступать, защищаться. Наступая, вы будете видеть наши лица, не наши спины, наши лица.
So why does Russia want to invade Ukraine? Well, there's a long-standing history between the two countries, and the Ukraine was formerly part of the USSR when Russia had its Soviet empire. Now, since the fall of the Berlin Wall, Ukraine has been an independent country. A lot of the Ukraine population speak Russian, and it appears that President Putin would like to reclaim the Ukraine for himself as part of Russia. Now, the tension between the two countries reached boiling point in 2014 when Russia invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea and wanted to declare it as an independent nation. Things calmed down relatively for a number of years, but early in 2021, tensions started to rise again when the president of Ukraine approached Joe Biden and urged him to allow Ukraine to join NATO. Now, NATO, which stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was set up following World War II and is a collection of 30 countries, all of whom have signed an agreement that they will help each other to defend an attack from an external party. The major countries involved in NATO are the USA, Canada, the UK, Germany, France, and most of the rest of Europe. And the Ukraine asked if it could join NATO because it wanted all of those countries to support it in the event that Russia does invade the country. Now, this arrangement disturbed President Putin of Russia because he doesn't want any of those countries becoming involved in a conflict between him and Ukraine. And so he's taken some decisive action now, and it looks like he's doing that firstly to prevent Ukraine becoming a member state of NATO, but also by doing it now, he knows that the NATO countries won't automatically be drawn into a conflict. If he allows Ukraine to join NATO, then in the future, if he was to invade Ukraine again, then he knows for sure that the USA, the UK, Germany, France, all of that military force will be against him on any future invasion. So that is one of the drivers why this is happening now. Now, President Putin's view of why he's invading Ukraine is somewhat different.
Обстоятельства требуют от нас решительных и незамедлительных действий. Народные республики Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи. В связи с этим, в соответствии со статьей 51 части 7 Устава ООН, санкции Совета Федерации России и во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой, мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима.
So as I mentioned earlier, President Putin believes that there's a large part of the Russian nation living in Ukraine, and he's claiming that they're suffering genocide and abuse from the Ukrainian authorities. So the invasion has now started, and the key question here is, firstly, how long is it going to last for? And secondly, what are the implications for the rest of the world whilst this conflict is going on? So what are the chances of this conflict escalating into a global war? Will any of the other countries be drawn in? Will NATO decide that it wants to support Ukraine against the Russian invasion? And if it does, what will Russia's response be? So far, the Western nations have provided support to Ukraine. They've provided some equipment and some training, but they haven't committed to actually joining in the conflict. And President Biden recently made a statement about continuing to support NATO, not Ukraine.
As Russia contemplates its next move, we have our next move prepared as well. Russia will pay an even steeper price if it continues its aggression, including additional sanctions. The United States will continue to provide defensive assistance to Ukraine in the meantime. Today, in response to Russia's admission that it will not withdraw its forces from Belarus, I have authorized additional movements of U.S. forces and equipment already stationed in Europe to strengthen our Baltic allies, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Let me be clear, these are totally defensive moves on our part. We have no intention of fighting Russia. We want to send an unmistakable message, though, that the United States, together with our allies, will defend every inch of NATO territory and abide by the commitments we made to NATO.
But let's have a look at what President Putin has said in response to the current situation.
Кто бы ни пытался помешать нам, а тем более создать угрозы для нашей страны, для нашего народа, должны знать, что ответ России будет незамедлительным и приведет вас к таким последствиям, с которыми вы в своей истории еще никогда не сталкивались. Мы готовы к любому развитию событий.
So his statement is really worrying. He said that whoever tries to stop us will face immediate consequences the like you have never seen before in your history. Now, it's not specified, but clearly the undercurrent of this statement is all about nuclear deterrent. Russia is armed with nuclear warheads, so it could send a nuclear strike to any country around the world. So the message here is clear. If anybody's thinking about helping the Ukraine, we will attack, and we will attack in a way that you've never experienced before. So essentially, he's laying down the gauntlet to all of the other countries around the world, saying, don't get involved, because if you do, you'll regret it. Now, unfortunately, that's how wars start, because countries make statements and threats, and other countries do not like being talked to like that. So there is a possibility here that Russia is laying down the gauntlet to the USA, saying, we are prepared to do anything. Now, it will be interesting to see what the USA's response to that is. I would hope that it is a calm and measured response, but unfortunately, it could escalate and it could develop into a global conflict. Now, one of the things that's really interesting in all of this is Russia's relationship with China. Now, China is not a member of NATO, so it is on the other side of the NATO alliance. And recently, the presidents of China and Russia both met, and they stipulated that they did not want to see NATO being expanded any further. So China is clearly on the side of Russia against NATO. And when you look at the trading relationship between the two countries, it's massive. China is Russia's biggest export market, and it's also the country that imports the most goods into Russia. So there is a potential here that China could support Russia in the event that other countries get drawn into this conflict. And then we would have the potential of the USA and the other NATO countries, Germany, France, the UK, Canada, being up against a Russian-Chinese alliance. And that would be the definition of World War III.